Hi everyone, in today's video I've got a machine embroidery calculator spreadsheet to share with you. I see this asked frequently in various places, in groups or online, about how much do you charge a customer because you've been asked to, embroider a name on a towel, or you've been asked to embroider something on a cap or on a sweatshirt, or alternatively you're trying to start a small business and you don't know how to charge for a certain item, and people are saying, well, I would charge X amount of pounds minimum, or some people are saying charge per so many thousand stitches, etc., which is fine. Other people say, I have a minimum charge of X amount of pounds. There's all kind of variables. But what a lot of people forget to do is they kind of get this figure in the mind, maybe charge X amount of pounds to put a name on a towel or a monogram on a towel. They then forget to factor in the cost of the stabilizer they're using, if they're using any water-soluble topper, how long it's going to take to stitch the design out. It may be that it's only a name, but the customer may have asked for the name to be 4 inches high. So, if you're stitching a name at an inch high, or you're stitching a name at 4 inches high, there's obviously a variance there in total number of stitches, which will impact on the time it takes. And obviously also it will also use more thread. And that's another thing that people forget to build in. Again, there's all sorts of other things. Some people add in an extra for, say, wear and tear on their machine, or for using the electricity. You can go on and on and on with this. But what I've done, I created a spreadsheet for myself for when I was doing embroidery or, heat transfer vinyl projects for tote bags last Christmas. So I've kind of used the principle I had for my spreadsheet for last year, and I've put together this spreadsheet. Now this is, I'm just saying it's an embroidery project calculator. You may want to use this slightly differently. There are cells that you can change. You'll see, quite a lot of the cells have got a little yellow flag. One thing I would also say is this one that I'm showing you here is in the Apple Mac numbers format. But I've also got this same spreadsheet as an Excel spreadsheet. So if you use Windows and you don't use a Mac, on Windows, the spreadsheet is normally Excel. So I have it available in both Mac numbers and Windows Excel. Or you may use Excel on your Mac, whatever you prefer. But if you just want a Mac proprietary numbers file, that's what I'm using today. But it's exactly the same for the Excel. And, all these things should transfer over. And then if you hover over these little yellow triangles in the corner of the cells, it will give you kind of like little prompts. Now, again, I'm in the UK, so mine's all in UK pounds. But again, once you open this in your spreadsheet, you should be able to easily change from pound to dollars or whatever currency, euros or whatever you work in. So for example, if I select this column here and go to cell, under currency, you'll see that I've got mine set as British pounds. But if you work in US dollars, all you need to do is look for US dollars in the list and choose that, and it will go over to dollars or, euros or whatever it is you want to use. But I'm just sticking with US dollars. And obviously you can change multiple cells at once. So, you could click and drag and select all these and change it all in one go. So I'm just going to run through the project spreadsheet and just show you kind of how it works and explain a couple of little tips. So you'll see here it says, please read the information on any box with a yellow triangle. Okay, that's the first thing. Here's another little prompt which I'll get to when I get down to the cell that it applies to. So what you might want to do is you might want to, have this on your computer or your laptop, whatever you work with your embroidery projects, and open this up for every customer you want to kind of work out a calculation for a project before you know whether to take it on. So let's just say, for instance, a customer gets in touch with you or a friend gets in touch with you and you want to charge them, and they say, can you embroider me a name on a towel, please? And you say, okay, what's the name, how big, do you want the design, etc. Once you've got that information, you can then start to fill out this calculator and see if what you were thinking of charging in your head to that person actually kind of works out here. And then if once you've got the calculation here, you think, well, actually that's too much, then at least it's a starting point for you to how far apart was I? Let's say, for instance, this comes up with £15 and you were thinking of only charging £5. Then you've kind of got some idea as to where you can go with it and maybe think, well, actually £5 is too cheap when I look at all the variables that are in here. Maybe I should be charging, I don't want to charge a 15 because it's a friend, or I think 15 might be a bit too much. I'll come a bit less. But one thing I would say is don't undervalue yourself. If you're whether you're doing this for a friend who's going to pay you, or whether you're doing this as a business and you want to obviously make a profit, you need to have all these things in mind before you just go and give a figure to somebody. Because the thing is, if you say to somebody, oh yeah, I can do that for £5 for you, no problem, but then you come along and you fill this in and you see that it's got actually really realistically you should be charging them 10, you've straight away done yourself out of £5. You can't really then go back and say, I know I quoted you 5 but it's going to be 10, because they're going to get a bit fed up with you then. But if you straight away give them a more realistic figure, then it's up to them whether they choose to accept it or not. Anything that's grey is generally where you will put a figure or a number in, okay? And again, there's things to look at. If it's just a digit like this, it means it's a number. If it's currency, then you're going to put in currency. And I'll explain as I go along. So let's just start to fill this in and let's see. Now, the other thing I would say is if you do download this and use it, I would download it and open it and save it as a template. In Numbers, for instance, if I've downloaded this and I've opened it, you can go to File and you can go to Save as Template, and it will put this then as a template in your Numbers projects. And then that way it doesn't matter how much you alter this, you've always got the template to go back to. Or once you've downloaded it, if it's a Mac, it normally automatically drops into your downloads folder. Drag it out of your downloads folder, put it somewhere on your computer as, master template, and then wherever you've saved it, right click and make a copy and then open it, and then you're only ever working on the copy. Okay, it says here customer name, and we've got a grey box, and you can see when I hover over it, it says enter customer name in here. So I'm going to click in the box, and for this one I'm just going to type Janet. Product type, enter the product type to stitch. Example, is it a cap, a hoodie, a towel? So let's just say towel. Then you start to come to costs. So what's it going to cost you to stitch this towel? So, you're going to need stabilizer. You might need water soluble stabilizer on the top of the towel if it's a towel to stop the stitches from sinking in. You're going to be using thread, all that kind of thing. So if you were providing the towel, you would put that in here. So it's just a digit So that means you need to put a quantity basically. So let's say you were providing the towel. So you click in the box and you'd type 1 and enter. Then in the next box, you'd put the price for the towel. So, you know, you might buy the towels at wholesale or a cost price, but you want to put a little bit of a markup on the towel. So because this is currency in here, you know, you might put £3.50 and enter. So straight away you've got £3.50. Okay, I'm not going to use this section for this one. I'm just going to assume that the customer's giving you a towel and you're just doing the stitching just to keep it a little bit more simpler, but I want to explain how to use it. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to change that 1 to 0 because it was a number, and I'm going to change the currency to 0.00, and you can see we're back to 0 here. Again, there's a section here that, you know, if you were doing applique, you might want to charge for a little bit of fabric and heat and bond. You know, you can work out what, you know, X amount of inches of fabric is going to be, and you can put that in as a flat rate. The next one down is tear away. So if you're doing a towel, you're most likely to be using tear away. Now I know, for example, on my roll of tear away that I buy, I can't remember what width it is, but I have, my biggest hoop is an 8x12 hoop. So let's say for argument's sake, I buy a roll of tear away that's 35 centimetres wide, which is basically just over 12 inches. So that would more or less cover the width of an 8-inch hoop. And then I reel off a length and cut it so it fits my 8x12 hoop. I kind of roughly work on 2 hoopings per metre for my 8x12 hoop. So again, I've given you a little prompt in this top one, and you would just kind of basically work the same principle out for your fusible. So in this little prompt here, it's saying take the cost of the roll of your stabilizer, calculate how many hoopings you can get per roll, and this will give you a cost to enter in cells 8, 9, 10 and 11. Okay, I need to change the numbers on this one. This is my prototype, and it says on cells 6, 7, 8 and 9. I'll change that. So it gives you an example. One roll of tear away, let's say 35 centimetres by a 50 metre roll, may cost you £35. I don't think mine costs anywhere near that, but just to give you an idea. So this would give me 100 hoopings on average for my 8x12 hoop. Obviously, if you're using your 4x4 hoop, you'll get a lot more. And basically, the way I did this was I just worked out how many hoopings per metre I could get using that size hoop, which is my biggest hoop at the moment. And I calculated I got 2 to every metre. So if there's 50 metres on a roll, that gives me 100 hoopings. If the roll was going to cost me £35, the figure that I would enter in here for hooping one hoop to do this towel would be effectively 35 pence, or if you're in the US that would be like 35 cents, is it? So I would type 0.35 and enter in there. So that's what it's going to cost me. Use that piece of stabilizer. Now the thing is, with stabilizer, you might not use the full height of the 8 inches. You know, you could position it at the top of the hoop or the lower part of the hoop, and when you cut it away, you might be left with a piece that's 3 inches by the length that you cut it. You know, maybe you cut it 18 inches long, let's say. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll see any lengths like that, I keep them and I sew them together. So although you're charging for the amount of an 8x12, you might not be using it. And then down the line, you'll have all that extra stabilizer that you can sew together when you've got, you know, a spare hour, let's say, or whatever, and remake stabilizer. So it's not actually costing you 35p, but I think if you do this as a, you know, as a more realistic figure, it's going to give you more of an idea. So for a towel, I wouldn't probably use cutaway. I wouldn't be using fusible, but I might use a water-soluble topper. So again, work out how much is your topper, how much are you using, and put a figure in here. So let's just say, for argument's sake, I'm going to say 10 pence for a water soluble topper. Some people charge for hooping, so they charge a hooping size. So again, if you're hooping a sweatshirt or a jacket, that might take you longer to hoop than a simple towel or tea towel. So you may want to put a figure in here. Some people charge a setup fee or frequent thread change. So let's say this customer's asked you to put a name, but they want each letter in a different colour. Obviously, there's time involved there in swapping out your colours. You may want to put a small fee in there for doing that. If a customer has maybe sent you a picture of something that they've seen maybe done in, say, heat transfer vinyl on something, and they've said to you, can you do a font like this on a towel for me? And you've not got that font, or you might have to buy the font, or you might have to look for the font and then get it digitized. In here, you could put a digitizing fee. If it's a font that you think you're going to use over and over and over again, you might not want to pass that fee on to the customer. You might want to not put anything in there, because you can obviously use, if you've created the font and you've paid to have it digitized, you can use that over and over again. So you might not want to, but it might be something they've sent you and you've got to get it digitized, and it might be something that is like personal to them, and you're never going to be able to use that again. So you might want to include a digitizing fee. Cost of thread. Now this is another one where a lot of people don't charge, but you're buying that thread and you're using it, and at some point you're going to have to replace that thread. So I've put a section in here for how much thread. So again, you can see it's just one digit, so it's a number. So let's just say your design is going to take 20,000 stitches. Now again, if you're opening up the name, to put on this towel in software, or you're opening up this name on your actual embroidery machine, it will always tell you how many stitches. So in here, it's a grey box, select on it, it says enter total stitch count per design in the number format. So say this customer asked you to do 2 towels, you would double up your stabilizer, unless you can get 2 towels out of 1 hoop, you would double up the number of stitches. In this example, I'm just saying it's one design. So let's say the design is 14,000 stitches, and I'm going to hit enter. That will tell me, based on the price of the thread, that the thread to use at cost is going to cost me approximately 12p for 14,000 stitches. You might want to change the cost of that. If you double click on the money amount, you'll see here that I've put mine in as £1.75. Basically, I think the kind of rough guide is you can get about 200,000 stitches from a 1,000 or 1,100 metre cone. And you might not want to make any money on the thread. You might want to put it in at cost. So I've just put in here that, say, the cone has cost me £1.75. If yours is costing you more, click where the cursor is, backspace, and put in your amount. I'm just going to close, and then you tick the green tick. And this is why I'm saying work on a copy, always keep a master, because if you mess up, you can always go back to the original. I'm going to close that down because I'm not altering anything. I'm going to say that is the cost, and that's what it tells you here. Double click on this cell and change the £1.75 cost per spool to your amount. Okay, so far we've got 57 pence materials. Okay, so in stabilizer and thread. So the next section down is what you're actually going to cost to stitch the design. And this is basically your labour charge. So again, stitch count per design. So again, it's a single digit. So I'm going to put in 14,000 like I did there and hit enter. Number of items to stitch 1. So again, up here, if you were, in here, if you were doing 2 towels, you'd put 28,000 in there. And again, you'd work out whether you can get it out of 1 or 2 hoopings, and you'd have adjusted your price there. So I'm saying it's 14,000 stitches and I'm only doing it once. A lot of people say they charge £1 per 1,000 stitches. So that's what I've put in here. But again, you can change this. If you want to charge more, click in this cell and put in your amount in money and it will calculate it here. But basically, what it's saying is, for 14,000 stitches, one design at £1 per 1,000 would be £14. Again, you may run your machine at a higher amount. You may run your machine at 1,000 stitches per minute. I've just put in 800 for now. Again, if you are opening your design in software or on your machine will tell you, and your software will tell you how long it's going to take to stitch the design. But you may have your machine not set at 800 stitches per minute. You might have it set at 1,000 stitches per minute, in which case it's going to take you less time. So for this particular design, let's say, if I stitched this design out with 14,000 stitches and it was all in one colour and it was working on the principle of £1 per 1,000 stitches and I had my machine set at 800 stitches per minute, it would take me 17.5 minutes to stitch the design. And it's saying that charge would be £14. So then if you come down to the next section here, it's saying to you here then, line 26, that the total cost to charge to your customer would be £14.57. So it's pulling in the figures from up here that you've input, plus your amount to stitch the design, and then it obviously just gives you the breakdown, which in this case is dead simple because it's only 57 pence off 14.57. So it shows you that your net profit is £14, and basically that's what you would get for just under 18 minutes worth of work. You might think that's high. You might want to adjust, the amount you charge. You might think that £14 for 18 minutes work is too high and you want to adjust it down. You can adjust it in here. You could, so let's say in here, if you put 0.50 and hit enter, so at 50p per 1,000 stitches, you'd be looking at £7. Again, it's because you're running it at 800 stitches per minute, it's going to take you 17.5 minutes. If you change that to 1,000 stitches per minute, the design's going to take you 14 minutes. So that would mean you'd get £7 approximately for a quarter of an hour's work. So per hour, that would be £28 an hour. So again, it's how you want to work it out. All as I'm saying is, this is a starting point for you. You may have thought to yourself, well, I'll just charge that customer £5 for that. But straight away, you've got kind of like 57p or 57 cents worth of supplies to take out of it. So your £5 that you were going to charge the customer is actually only £4.40 something. So this is just going to give you an idea. Some people say, I don't turn my machine on unless I get £15. So in this particular instance, you can see that for this simple name with 14,000 stitches, it comes to about £14 net profit. So £15 would be more or less right. But again, you can play around with this. Now, one other thing I want to show you is, obviously, you may have things that you use or want to charge for that I've not included in here. So the way to do that is to click on, don't be tempted to try and add a line in at the bottom here. It won't work. Either click on this last line and click add row above, or click on any other section and, you know, click add row above or below. So you can see I've added in 2 extra rows here. If I click on this total now, you'll see they're all included. If you try and add a row below this bottom row, it won't be included in the calculation. So again, just going back to what I said at the beginning, save the downloaded digital file that you get from my website as a template and always work on a copy. And that way, if you mess up, you've always got the original to go back to. You know, that's how to include things in here that maybe I've not put in, or, you know, things I've not thought of, for example. Again, you can do that with your template and save it as a template, you know, or you could add in a few extra lines. But once you get to working with this calculator, you'll see how to make it work for you. That's just kind of like a brief overview. And then from here, I would select it and I would go to File, or at the top here, click on it. And then I would give this a different name. So I would highlight where it says Embroidery Project Calculator, and I would maybe save this as Janet Towel. I'd put it on my desktop so I can find it and click enter. And then if I go to my desktop, there's the numbers document for Janet, you know, with all the information. You might want to print this and keep it with the projects, especially as it's coming up to Christmas. If you're getting a few requests to do different things, you might want to keep track of what goes with where. So at the top, again, this is in numbers, but it should be the same in Excel. If you click on print, or page orientation, usually by default is in portrait. If you click on landscape, you'll see part of it's gone onto a second page. If you grab this scale slider and slide it down till it all fits on one page, you can see it jumps to 2 pages there. So it's all on one page. From here, you can click print, and then you can put that with the actual project. So you know what project goes with what item and how much you're going to be charging. And then when once you've printed it, you just click done. So I hope you found that helpful. If you are watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching it on my blog, and you've got any other suggestions for things to add in, into the supplies, or maybe into the stitch count per design, leave them in the comments, because I don't mind, working on this budget and adjusting it, and then I can always update it in my shop on my website. So this, as I say, is available in 2 formats. It's available in a numbers proprietary format or in Excel, and it's available on my Apple Lover 53 website. And if you go there and click on shop, you'll see a section that says embroidery, and you'll find the two designs in there. So obviously, if people come up with other suggestions and I update it, I will always update it on my website. But anyway, it's just an idea, and hopefully it helps somebody. So if you found it helpful, please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't already do so. Like I say, leave any questions or comments directly under the YouTube video and try and get back to you, and any suggestions, and I'll try and maybe update the spreadsheet. Anyway, bye for now.